In this lesson, we will take a simple chord progression formula, sharp 4 minor, to the 7 chord as a dominant, to the 3 as a minor, to the 6 as a dominant, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite voicings and techniques to create a stunning chord progression. So let's take the key or the scale of E flat major. If we build a 7th chord off each degree of the scale, we then have the diatonic 7th chords in the key of E flat major. So the 1 chord would be E flat major 7, the 2 chord, F minor 7, the 3 chord, a G minor 7, the 4 chord, A flat major 7, the 5 chord, B flat 7, the 6 chord, C minor 7, the 7 chord, D minor 7 flat 5, and then back to the 1 chord, E flat major. So if we create progressions using these chord stacks, we are playing in the key of E flat major. So the most common progression in jazz is the 2-5-1 progression. And as the name suggests, we take the chords built on the 2nd degree, the 2 chord, the 5th degree, the 5 chord, and the 1st degree, the 1 chord. So 2, 5, and 1. Now in jazz music, we don't typically use this voicing configuration where we just have the chord tones sequentially 1, 3, 5, 7. A useful exercise is to spread these notes over 2 hands. So we're going to play the roots in our left hand and the 3rds and 7ths in our right hand. So this is the simplest configuration. Here for the F minor 7, instead of this, we're going to play the root down here and the 3 and the 7 in our right hand. So this is nice because the 7 just drops by a half step to become the 3rd of the next chord. If you see, this is a B flat 7, but with the 3rd up here. And then the same again, the 7 of B flat 7 drops by a half step to become the 3rd of E flat major 7. So 2, 5, and 1. Now if we build a 2-5-1 progression into the 2 chord, remember the 2 chord here is an F minor 7, we would then have a G minor 7 to a C7 down to F minor 7. And again, with the 3-note voicings, we would have G minor 7, the 3 chord in E flat major, C7, the 6 chord in E flat major, to the 2 chord, to the 5 chord, to the 1. So when I say the 3 chords in E flat major, if we think of the scale, 1, 2, 3, this is the 3rd degree, so G minor 7 would be the 3 chords. And if we go to the 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that would be a C minor 7 if we take the diatonic 7th chords, but because we're using this in the context of a 2-5-1, we can play a C7. So G minor 7, C7, F minor 7, B flat 7, and E flat major 7. So we can extend this further and we can build a 2-5-1 into the G minor 7. So G minor 7 is our 3 chord in the key of E flat major. A 2-5-1 into G minor 7, we'd have some kind of A minor 7 to a D7 and down to G minor. But remember that we don't use these basic voicings. Instead, we're going to play them with 3rds and 7ths. So here is A minor 7 to D7 to G minor 7. And this can continue to C7, F minor 7, B flat 7, and finally to the 1 chord, E flat major. So we can view the A minor 7 as the sharp 4 minor chord. So if we think to the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the diatonic 7th chord off the 4th degree in E flat major would be an A flat major 7. But because we're using this to approach the G minor, we can play this chord. So this could be the 1, 2, 3, 4, sharp 4 minor. So sharp 4 minor to the 7 chord as a dominant, to the 3 as a minor, to the 6 as a dominant, to the 2 as a minor, to the 5 as a dominant, and then to our 1 major chord. So an interesting point to note here is that we're now playing a chord off each degree of the scale. If we think 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, and 1. But this is actually the Lydian mode, it's not the major scale, because the major scale would have the A flat, so instead we're basing our progression on the E flat Lydian mode. Another interesting point is that we can arrange these chords in fifths, so let's work backwards this time. We have the root, the 5, the 2, the 6, the 3, the 7, and the 4. Or down the piano, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, and 1. So whilst we can create progressions with these basic chord stacks and the basic chord qualities, we can also introduce more advanced voicings and we can change the chord qualities. We can do this within the 4-7-3-6-2-5-1 framework that I've just shown you. So it's important to understand that as jazz musicians, we are always learning new voicings. This is an ongoing process. And now I'm going to show you some of my favorite voicing styles and some ways that I like to voice the chords in this progression. So let's start with the sharp 4 minor chord. So what I showed you before was just an A minor 7, but what I like to do is play an A minor 7 flat 5. So just an A minor 7, but with the 5th flattened. Some nice voicings, we can play the root and the flat 5 in our left hands. And then if we play a major triad off the 7, so there's our A minor 7 flat 5. If we play root 5 and a major triad off the 7th, we get this really beautiful chord. So now we have the root, the flat 5, the 7, the 9, and the 11. So what's really nice with this is it voice leads beautifully to a D7 or a D13 chord with the flat 9. So a D7 shell in my left, root 3 and 7, and then I'm playing the 3, the 13, and the flat 9. You can also look at this as a B triad, so a B major triad, but in its second inversion. And notice how smooth that voice leads. So another voicing for the A minor 7 flat 5 is instead of starting here, we can take all of these notes in our right hand and then play that over a shell voicing. So here, root and 7. And what I like to do, because notice this voicing doesn't have the minor 3rd in there. So I'm going to add that into my melody. And then up to the D7. So another thing we can do is arpeggiate the left hand here. So that might look tricky, but all I'm playing is the primary chord tones of A minor 7 flat 5. I'm playing root, 7, 3, flat 5, 7. And then with the melody, that's a really beautiful way to start. So that would take us down to a G minor, the 3 chord. We would have sharp 4 minor 7 flat 5 to a 7 dominant, and then down to some kind of G minor. But again, what we're going to do here is add a minor 7 flat 5 flavor. So instead of G minor 7, I'm going to play G minor 7 flat 5. So let's see how this can sound. So here's a nice voicing again. I'm going to arpeggiate that left hand. So this can be a nice drill to isolate. So just play this slowly for the A minor 7 flat 5, and then for the G minor 7 flat 5. Remember, all I'm playing is the primary chord tones, but arpeggiated like this. And that just adds a bit more interest into the left hand. So from the top. So what did I do there? Well, firstly, when we land on the G minor 7 flat 5, I'm adding some extra melody. So where did these notes come from? Well, if we think of a G minor 7 chord, we would have the G natural minor scale. So, and if we play the flat 5, we add the flat 5 in there. And that gives us this scale. So what I was playing was, so here I'm just hitting the primary chord tones 3 and 7, and then falling down into a C7 sus. So notice here, instead of playing a C7 chord, I've raised that third to play a sus chord. So this creates a bit of a mysterious uplifting quality. So we have G minor 7 flat 5, C7 sus, and then I can play a D minor triad over this C7 sus shell, and that gives me the 9, the sus 4 again, and the 13, which is a very beautiful, very spacious chord. So sus chords, they often resolve, so we will have this movement. So C7 sus to C7. And if we play this voicing, when we resolve the suspension, we can also add a tension, here the sharp 5 or the flat 13. So C13 sus to a C7 flat 13, which is really nice. And that's going to take us down to our 2 chord, which we'll get onto in a second. So again from the top. So this is a nice chord for the 2 chord. We're playing this as a minor chord, but a minor 9. So if we think there's our F minor 7 in simple terms, what I'd like to do is play root 5 and 9. You know, this is a stack of fifths in the left hand, and then 3, 5, 7, 9 here. We can also add the 11 by playing these 2 notes with our thumb, and that will give us a richer sound. Sometimes I just like to play the natural 9. So what's going on here? Well, we have C13 sus to C7 flat 13, and then down to our F minor 9, but notice I'm running up the keyboard. Now this might look tricky, but what's really happening? So first of all, I arpeggiate this, which is 3, 5, 7, 9 of F minor 7. And then once I get to here, I play the minor 3 with my left hand, and then I just start arpeggiating a C minor triad. So it goes like this. And we can run that all the way up the keyboard. So that creates a nice effect. So there's our 2 chord. Now we need to move to the 5. We could just go to a regular B flat 7, but what I'm going to do is add the sharp 5. So B flat 7, B flat 7 sharp 5. And that gives us this chord with some beautiful tension. And notice over the F minor that I enclose the sharp 5 like this. And I also add the sharp 9 on top. So this is a really useful voicing. It's one that we should learn in all 12 keys. So we have B flat 7, here's the 5, sharp 5, and the 9 would be here, and that's the sharp 9. So we have, and then this shape, we can repeat it up here, and then to our 1 chord. And so on the 1 chord, this is an E flat 6, 9. So this would be E flat major 7, but notice when we play E flat 6 and add the 9, and voice it like this, it creates this stack of fourths, which is a very open sound. So one thing to notice here is that this progression so far could be used to introduce any tune that starts on the 1 chord. So once we get to our 5 chord, we could then use that. So we could introduce the tune Misty, or we could play the tune Tenderly. Or any tune that starts on the 1 chord. So in the introduction progression, I added an extra chord in. So once we go from the 2 minor to our 5 dominant, and then to the 1, I then move back to the 6th chord. And again with a sus, this time a sus 9, so C9 sus to C13 sus, and then to our C7, flat 13 or sharp 5. And we can arpeggiate that up. So I'll finish with putting everything together. I'm actually going to play this a little bit bigger now. So in these demonstrations so far, I've kept in this register. But what we can do is play more arpeggiation and also play the melody in octaves. So let's see how this can sound. And I will use it to introduce a tune that starts on the 2 chord. A nice example is the tune I Fall in Love Too Easily. So here we go. Don't forget to download the PDF file, which contains all of the voicings and formulas that we've covered today. And if you've enjoyed this lesson, you might also like to check out this related tutorial, The Most Beautiful Chord Progression. Here's a little preview of how that progression sounds. And then we can go into a tune, for example, Misty.